The man donates millions of dollars to both the left and the right party every year, so it really doesn't matter who's going to win. And this game swings back and forth like a pendulum. When the sheeple get tired of playing this game and start to revolt, the man comes right up the middle with fascism.
If you listen to Benito Mussolini, who knew a thing or two about fascism, he said that fascism is the merger of state and corporate powers.
So what is lobbying? Well, simply, lobbying is the act of influencing decisions made by legislators and regulatory agencies. You know, the guys who make the rules. And the people who exert this influence are called lobbyists. Well-connected professionals with slick suits and slicker tongues. Lobbyists tend to be experts in the fields they lobby for. They advise lawmakers on how to make sure Americans are getting the most benefit from the laws they pass, while also reducing potential harm. It's a good idea. Why wouldn't you want an expert's advice? Here's where things get screwy. Sometimes the lawmakers decide the cash is greener on the other side, so they become lobbyists themselves. They leave government and join a private company, taking their connections and influence with them. This phenomenon is called the revolving door. People going from regulating an industry to working in that same industry, and sometimes back and forth multiple times. Corporations love having such powerful people on their payroll, so they do everything they can to lure them over. And for their part, the regulators help out by making a few choice laws to benefit their future employers. And with the spin of the door comes a host of new laws that benefit some companies, hinder others, but business keeps rolling, and in the end, no one really gets hurt. Except, of course, the people.
You'll see members of Congress who will take on issues defending one particular special interest and then go out to work for that special interest after they leave. And the same is true of all government agencies. In fact, that's considered the normal way to do business in Washington.
Big government and big business essentially are the same, are they not? What's the difference between a corporation and a government agency when the corporation buys the politicians with campaign donations and the politicians do as they're told in passing laws that the corporation would have passed had the corporation been the government?
As far as political ideologies go, none is more universally reviled than fascism. Although the movement was only in effect for a short while in a select few countries, its repercussions are still felt to this day. So what exactly is fascism? Essentially, fascism was born out of the idea that rational egalitarian democracies would ultimately lead to severe crisis and weakness. Around the late 1800s, a more irrational and emotional structure based on social Darwinism began to overtake the idea that people should have equality. Instead, fascism promised to create the rebirth of a new, stronger, and greater society stripped of all its weaknesses. Some point to Italian writer and poet Gabriele D'Annunzio as the originator of this ideology. During the 1930s and 40s, it saw significant influence, first in Italy, then in Germany, and finally Japan, although a large number of countries borrowed the ideology around the same time. In effect, fascism operates under a strict doctrine. First off, it attempts to unify countries under a single genetic banner. Often, this nationalism includes the concept of racial or cultural purity as a method of weeding out weakness. Hitler used this to paint Jews and other groups as not being part of a pure Aryan race, and thus worthy of being eliminated. Second is the total control of society and people by the state, called totalitarianism. Citizens are expected to have unwavering faith in a single party ruling elite, in nearly all cases, a dictator. It is intended to directly oppose pluralism, which is the ability of multiple parties to compete for power. Economically, fascism seeks to solve the problems of materialist capitalism and Marxist socialism. In practice, countries did this by promoting private enterprise and handsomely rewarding successful businessmen while abolishing unions. However, the state would only allow businesses which served and promoted the national interest. They also sought to ban foreign trade to avoid becoming dependent on any other country. The end goal is to become fully self-sufficient and to be able to allocate significant resources towards the military. Fascism is also intensely supportive of violence to achieve political means. That specifically includes removing weak people from the fascist state, either by executing or deporting them. all through strict social laws enforced by a violent police army. In the 30s, these were Hitler's brown shirts and Mussolini's black shirts. Finally, as a social ideology, fascism promotes youth and revolution, with a particular focus on strengthening desirable and supposedly moral characteristics. For example, in fascist Italy, homosexuality was seen as moral weakness and expressly forbidden, along with pornography and prostitution. In Nazi Germany, abortions were legal and often compulsory in states of deformity or non-Aryan racial characteristics. However, for healthy Aryan babies, abortion was illegal. Fascism is intended to craft a society to the ultimate ambitions of a single ruling party. As history has shown, this has promoted mass murder, eugenics, censorship, propaganda, and severe inequality. Some have said that fascism defies the political spectrum entirely and is neither left nor right. In the end, fascism is exactly what it sounds like, a complete nightmare.